I wanted to unpack how you can invest to make your kids disgustingly rich and show you the exact tools that you can use to make this happen. Now, I'm not saying that this is easy, but it can be done. Now, we know looking at the long-term return on the share market and the property market that it's actually not that hard to build wealth investing. The hard part is getting the start, building the initial momentum with your investments that can then compound for the years ahead. And that's what this plan is about for your kids. So the aim here, if we're going to make your kids disgustingly rich, as I promised, that by the time they turn 18, you want to be giving your kids an investment property and a share portfolio that's big enough to fund that investment property so that they don't have to do it, and then the property can just grow and compound in value over time. In order to do this, we're going to need two goals here. The first goal is going to be for the deposit on an investment property. Now, I like nice round numbers. So if we were to use, say, a $1 million investment property, which is a really, really chunky property investment, but keep in mind that a latte is probably $20, in 18 years time. But we're going to save and aim at $1 million property. To buy that property, you're going to need a deposit plus costs of 20% deposit, 5% cost, 25%, $250,000. That's goal number one. The second goal here is that we're going to have a share portfolio that throws off enough income to fund the cost of the investment property. So if you've got this investment property, it's going to be generating some rent, but it's going to have some debt attached to it as well. So you're going to need some money, or your kid's going to need some money to fund that so that they're not having to go out at 18 and be forced to cover an interest shortfall. I'm not going to get too deep into the maths on this one, but essentially 2.5% of a property value should cover that shortfall each year. So on $1 million property, the shortfall will be around $25,000 a year, meaning that there's 25 grand plus the rental income will cover the mortgage payments and all the ongoing expenses for the property. That's our second goal. Now we're going to use the 5% rule to figure out how much money you need to have in your share portfolio to get your $25,000 a year income. The rule here is that if you divide a number by 5%, it will tell you how much you need to have in investments. And to say that a different way in like human words, that if you've got an investment portfolio, you should be able to draw about 5% from that portfolio as income and never eat into the capital over time. So if you've got $1 million share portfolio, that'll give you an income of about $50,000 every year. 5% of $1 million, $50,000. If you need to cover a $25,000 shortfall, you're going to need about half a million dollars in your investment portfolio. So now what we're going to do to figure out your savings and investment plan to get enough money to have that share portfolio plus fund the property deposit, we're going to use the Money Smart Savings Goal Calculator. This is Money Smart, run by the government, nice and easy to use. I'm going to flip the camera around and show you exactly how this works. All right, so this is the Money Smart Savings Goal Calculator. It's pretty simple to use. You can just Google Money Smart Savings Goal Calculator and it'll come up. You click through these options here that you want to save an amount of $750,000. That's your 250 grand property deposit plus your $500,000 share portfolio in 18 years time. The interest rate we're using here is the 30-year return on the Australian share market, and the starting balance, if it's zero, then that's completely fine. Or if you've got some money in there that you've socked aside already or got from Nana or whatever, you can put an amount in there. Then it will just tell you exactly how much you need to save each month to reach your goal of $750,000 in 18 years time. You can see this building over here. You can also tweak around with the goals. If you look at this and say, look, that's just too much, I'm going to do half of that. So a $500,000 property and enough money to fund it, $457 per month. Then you've got the plan, you've got the targets, you just need to make it happen. Like I said, not easy, but if you can give your kid a property and a share portfolio that can fund that property, a $1 million property over the next 30 years will create a serious amount of wealth. Using a compound interest calculator here, you can see that $1 million property for an 18-year-old by the time they reach age 60 will grow to a massive $50 million in wealth. So if you can give them that head start, my bet is that the rest of your mother's, father's days, and probably every day in between are pretty much sorted.